5 victims lured to mysterious meetings. Number 5. The disappearance of Leonard Erickson. Leonard Erickson was a 39-year-old divorcee who lived with his teenage son Jared at their dairy farm in Strong City, Oklahoma. On the morning of March 14, 1998, Leonard and Jared were eating breakfast when an unidentified man in a pickup truck showed up at their farmhouse. Leonard went to speak with the man for several minutes, and when he came back inside, he told Jared that the stranger was interested in buying one of his horses. Curiously, Leonard had never advertised having horses for sale. Nevertheless, Leonard left with the mysterious stranger in his pickup truck to go show him the horse. This would be the last time Jared ever saw his father. There was no indication that Leonard ever visited the barn where he kept his horse, but a waitress did report seeing Leonard and the stranger at a nearby coffee shop 2 hours after he left the farm. The case took a bizarre turn 6 months later, when police received an anonymous phone call from a man who reported seeing Leonard at a bar in Amarillo, Texas. When police arrived at the bar, the caller was gone, and there was no sign of Leonard. Before his disappearance, Leonard was experiencing serious financial difficulties because of his divorce and the recent folding of his dairy business, so there was speculation that he might have disappeared voluntarily. However, those close to Leonard do not believe he ever would have abandoned his son. Leonard Erickson has not been seen since his disappearance, and no one knows the identity of the man who visited him that morning. Number 4. The murder of Dorothy Miller. In 1969, 48-year-old Dorothy Miller lived in Burlington, Iowa, and was the only female real estate agent in the area at that time. On the evening of August 15, Dorothy received a call from a man calling himself Robert Clark, who wanted to be shown a local house that was for sale. Since Dorothy did not like showing houses alone late at night, she brought her husband, Fred, along. The couple met Clark, who claimed he was planning to move his family from Des Moines. The following morning, Clark phoned Dorothy again and asked if he could take photos of the property for his wife. Dorothy was not available that day, but she scheduled another appointment for August 18. The two of them met that night and were seen entering the house together by neighbors. When Fred Miller awoke the following morning, he realized that his wife hadn't come home and contacted the police. They traveled to the house and found Dorothy's body inside an upstairs closet. She had been knocked out with a blunt object and tied up before being sexually assaulted and stabbed 22 times. Robert Clark was the obvious suspect, but police couldn't find any trace of him in town. It seemed very likely that Robert Clark was an alias and that he targeted Dorothy because she was the only female real estate agent around. Clark probably intended to murder her during their first meeting at the house on August 15 but had to change his plan when Dorothy brought her husband along. Given the cold, calculated fashion in which he carried out his crime, authorities suspected that the mysterious Robert Clark might be a serial killer, but he has never been identified. Number 3. The murder of Penny Bell. In 1991, 43-year-old Penny Bell ran a successful employment agency and lived with her husband and 2 children in the village of Denham, England. On the morning of June 6, builders were renovating the Bell home when they saw Penny leave at approximately 9:40 a.m. She told the builders that she was running late for an appointment. 2 hours later, Penny's car would be found in the parking lot of the Gurnall Leisure Centre in Greenford, a suburb of London. Penny's body was in the front seat. She had been stabbed and slashed a total of 50 times. Penny never shared any details about her appointment that morning, and there was no record of it in her diary. 3 days earlier, Penny had withdrawn $8,500 from the joint bank account she shared with her husband, but the money was never found, and no one knows what she was planning to use it for. The only clue was a set of design samples in the back seat of Penny's car, which seemed to indicate that she was showing them to someone before she was killed. Before she was found, 2 witnesses reported seeing Penny drive her car through Greenford with an unidentified male passenger. They appeared to be struggling, and Penny could be seen staring out the window and mouthing the words "help me." It's theorized that Penny met her killer at another location, and he then forced her to drive to the leisure center, where she was subsequently murdered. However, to this day, no one knows the identity of Penny Belf's killer or his motive. Number 2. The disappearance of Carmen Halleck. On December 18, 1969, Carmen Halleck, a 22-year-old waitress and junior college student from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, had lunch with her former sister-in-law, Nancy Bauer. Carmen told her that she had a meeting about an employment opportunity scheduled that night. Apparently, a teacher from her junior college had contacted her, claiming that he did undercover work with the government and could offer her a similarly well-paying position. Nancy never saw Carmen again after that day and became concerned when she didn't hear from her at Christmas. When Nancy visited Carmen's apartment, she discovered that her dog had not been fed in days. Carmen's car was soon found abandoned in a nearby parking lot, and she was officially reported missing. In 1973, a Florida man named Gerard John Schaefer Jr. was given 2 life sentences for the murders of 2 young women, but there has always been suspicion that he had many more victims. 2 gold-filled teeth and a shamrock pin were discovered among Schaefer's possessions after he was arrested, and both items are believed to have belonged to Carmen Halleck. Schaefer had also been employed as an intern teacher in Fort Lauderdale in 1969. It was also discovered that he had written a bizarre fantasy story about a woman with a black dress and black high heels. On the day she disappeared, Carmen purchased some black high heels and told Nancy that she was going to wear them with a black cocktail dress for her meeting that night. However, Schaefer was murdered in prison in 1995, so if he had any involvement in Carmen Halleck's disappearance, he took that secret to his grave. Number 1. The murder of Lindsay Bozick. On February 2, 2008, 24-year-old real estate agent Lindsay Bozick received a phone call from a woman who asked if she could show her an expensive home in the Sannock district of Vancouver. Lindsay agreed to meet the woman at 5:30 p.m., but she soon received another call from a man who said he would be meeting her instead. This made Lindsay uneasy, so she asked her boyfriend, Jason Zailo, to check in on her while she showed the house. Jason and one of his friends arrived at 5:45 p.m. and claimed that they saw 2 figures moving around inside. When Lindsay didn't respond to a text message, Jason and his friend decided to enter the house. They would discover Lindsay's body in the upstairs bedroom. She had been stabbed over 40 times. At 5:41 p.m., a call had been made from Lindsay's BlackBerry, which probably occurred by accident while she was being attacked. Witnesses reported seeing Lindsay enter the house with a man and woman shortly before this. The couple had called Lindsay on a cell phone, which was used exclusively for the crime and purchased under the name Paulo Rodriguez. In December 2007, Lindsay had met up with an old friend while visiting her father in Calgary, Alberta. 1 month later, this friend was arrested as part of the largest cocaine bust in Alberta's history. Since Lindsay was murdered shortly after the bust, there is speculation that the 2 events were somehow connected. In February 2016, Lindsay's father claimed that he was threatened by one of the people involved in his daughter's murder, who said that Lindsay was targeted by drug dealers to send a message to anyone who squealed on them. At this point, however, there is no evidence to bring charges against anyone.